Good evening, everybody. My name is Kenny Collins. I'm the band director of Crest High School. And this is a very weird introduction for me. A couple weeks ago, we had to cancel the event, and we started looking for new clinicians because our old ones were not available anymore. My first call was to someone that I have known for 20 years. And that's a very weird thing to say considering I'm only 34 years old. But I first met, he's now Dr. Whitfield, but I've always just called him Mark. Mark was a very nerdy, kind of arrogant junior trombone player, and I was a freshman in the high school band, and that's just kind of who Mark was to me for a while. And then he all of a sudden graduates, and he's the drum major for Carolina Crayon. I'm like, that's a really big deal. And then I see him now and then he's getting his doctorate degree at Southern Mississippi University. And so now I have to start calling him Dr. Whitfield. That's very weird. In my mind, he's still that nerdy trombone player from high school. But honestly, Mark is, he's a fantastic musician, he's a fantastic educator. Mark has performed in multiple countries as a trombone player. He has taught across the United States with bands, marching bands, concert bands. He is a Yamaha-sponsored artist, and he is currently the assistant band director at North Carolina State University. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't think that he's done with collecting awards and accolades. He's very young, he's very energetic, and I think that he's been great for our kids. The thing that has made me the most happy is when he told these kids, it doesn't have to be perfect. His focus has been on growth, which is what our kids need. And so it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Mark Whitfield.
Oh, there we go. Awesome. Hi, my name is Dr. Mark Whitfield. I'm the Assistant Director of Athletic Bands at NC State University. And how about this band? I am thrilled to be here. These students, as Mrs. Ebert said earlier, most of these students got this music within the last week, some of them within the last couple of days. I think several students on the stage right now looked at that piece for the first time yesterday. So we have worked our absolute tails off for a couple of hours yesterday and all day today. That first piece was a piece by Frank Gulino. Frank is a friend of mine. I actually met Frank through doing my doctoral project, the big long paper that I wrote that now I get to be called doctor, which is whatever. I interviewed Frank because one of the pieces I wrote about was a piece that he wrote. We became friends, and now we text each other every couple of weeks or so. That piece was called Skyline, and I think it's super appropriate that the middle school group, the last piece y'all played, kind of gives some Mario Kart, right? Because that gives a whole lot of Legend of Zelda, right? I'm right there with you. So, our next piece, we're going to change it up like hardcore, like now for something completely different. I like to program specific things on every concert with every band that I conduct. That's a new piece by a living composer. This piece has only been written 4 or 5 years ago. The next piece is a transcription. It's actually originally a choral work by Eric Whitacre. The tune is called Seal Lullaby. And so it really gives the band the opportunity to show off their expression, their expressivity, kind of how they phrase. There's nothing in it that's super duper technical, but it gives them the opportunity without having to worry about all the wiggly finger stuff in woodwind land, right? They don't have to worry about all that. So all they get to do is show off how well they can phrase and how well they can play expressively. So, like I said, I like to program new works, transcriptions, standard works, and maybe a little bit of jazz at the end of the night. So I'll talk to you all after Seal Lullaby. But I would like right now to welcome to the stage, if she's not, she's already here, Mrs. Amy Jones. Please thank her for me, with me. Mrs. Jones is the choral director here. You're the choral director here. She's the choral director here, and she got the call, I think, yesterday or today, so she's jumping in on piano because our pianist kind of didn't quite work out the way we wanted to, which is entirely okay. So thank you, Mrs. Jones, and we hope you enjoy this band transcription of Eric Whitacre's Seal Lullaby. Give it up one more time for Mrs. Jones. So, the next piece on this program is, like I said, relatively a standard. It's a piece called Shackelford Banks by a composer named J. Bo Cook, also another living composer. But Shackelford Banks was inspired by the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So not only is it a standard work, it's also bringing kind of some attention or some, some awareness to the culture of this state, right? So it's called Shackelford Banks. The subtitle is The Tale of Wild Mustangs. So for those of you that don't know, several hundred years ago, the early settlers of eastern North Carolina let loose or lost track of several of their horses in the Outer Banks. So out in the Morehead City, Beaufort area. I'm from eastern North Carolina. Out in the Morehead City, Beaufort area and north in the Outer Banks, east of that area, there are herds of wild horses that live on the Outer Banks. You can see them on a clear day. It's really kind of cool. You can take cruises and things like that that'll go out by the islands. You can see the wild horses. It's really cool. So it's a programmatic work. I want you to kind of close your eyes and envision almost like a Western film, right? Like there's some very Magnificent Seven kind of motivic material in here, where it feels like there's. I was talking to the students earlier. There's like a stagecoach chase. It's all very like it's all very Western inspired. So as much as we've got kind of this Eastern North Carolina title, the actual programmaticness of the work really kind of almost evokes some Western motives. So please, I hope you enjoy J. Bo Cook's Shackelford Banks, The Tale of Wild Mustangs. I feel you. Me too. So I'm going to talk just a little bit more, and now I've got notes. First off, there is a quick, blink and you'll miss it flute solo at the very beginning of that piece, so I want to recognize Catherine Fry on flute. And now you get to hear me talk just a little bit more about this one next piece. So as I'm talking about this next piece, I've got several soloists who are going to get up and move to the front stage, left corner of the stage, and form a little Dixieland band. The last piece that we're going to play is at a Dixieland jazz funeral. I'll talk about that for just a second, but before, I would be remiss if I did not recognize and thank Mr. Collins, Mr. Washburn, Mr. Pennell, and Mr. Clary, and most importantly, for hosting us in this wonderful facility, Mr. Maples, the high school band directors in Cleveland County. So please help me give them a hand. I'd also like to thank the students on the stage for trusting, the band directors and the students on the stage for putting trust in me to bring me out and bring some new music to them and work our tails off for the last 26 hours or so. But more importantly than that, students on the stage, I would like for you all to give a huge round of applause to your biggest supporters out here, mom, dad, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, and sisters, because without them, y'all wouldn't be able to do what you do. So please, give them a hand. Yeah? It is incredibly important to support the arts. It is incredibly important to support the arts. So thank you all for being here, because I know there's tons of places you could be on a Tuesday afternoon, but thank you so much for coming out to this and supporting these wonderful students in Cleveland County, yeah? I'd also like to thank the respective administrations at each of the high schools. I'd also like to thank my administration and my boss and folks at North Carolina State for letting me come out and do this. We've got a lot of support at NC State. I could talk about it forever, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the last piece, but I just wanted to thank those folks really directly and specifically, because without the band directors and the parents and everybody that supports what we're doing here, I wouldn't be able to do what I do at NC State. And so I just want to thank you all from the absolute bottom of my heart. It is wonderful that we have this much support for this in Cleveland County. So without further ado, the last piece is at a Dixieland jazz funeral. Mr. Collins introduced me, said I did my doctorate at the University of Southern Mississippi. University of Southern Mississippi is about 90 miles away from New Orleans. So it's just close enough to be a whole lot of fun. I've spent a ton of time in New Orleans. I've introduced the students to a wonderful clarinet player named Doreen Ketchens. Write her down. Go check her out if you haven't already. So the concept of a New Orleans, a Dixieland jazz funeral, right? It's actually a French tradition that in New Orleans you can hire a band to accompany your funeral, leaving the church, going to the graveside, and then leaving the graveside, going to whatever establishment you want to celebrate your loved one, right? So on the way from the church to the graveside, it's a dirge, it's a funeral, right? We are sad, we are mourning the loss of this incredible loved one that we've lost, right? So you get to the graveside, you do the graveside service. When you leave, we're not mourning anymore, baby, it's a party. We're celebrating the life of that person. So this piece is actually comprised of two kind of traditional tunes out of the lexicon. One is Just a Closer Walk with Thee. That's the hymn that you'll hear at the beginning. And then the back half of it, the party, if you will, is When the Saints Go Marching In. So not only are you going to hear some really outstanding playing from the band, but I want to introduce our soloists, our Dixieland band, right? So we've got Olivia Delaware on clarinet, Jake Kleiner on trumpet, Tanner Cook and Brandon Beatty also on trumpet, Jake Seyfried, I think I'm getting that right, on trombone, Jeremiah Kennedy on tuba, and Jackson Gilchrist on the drum set. So let's make sure we thank them appropriately and enjoy at a Dixieland jazz funeral.
studies all the time.